Okay. Hello, everyone. How you all doing today? Good?
Great.
All right, excellent. This is the Introduction to Independent Filmmaking panel. My name's Kevin McKeever. I'm Vice President of Marketing for the Robotech franchise. Now, before I worked on Robotech, I worked at places like Fox, at Paramount, at Universal Pictures. I worked for the producer Linda Obst, who produced such films as Hope Floats, One Fine Day, Sleepless in Seattle, Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan, The Fisher King. I also worked at places like MTV, and I've worked all over Hollywood. This is the panel where you get to ask questions about what it takes to get yourself started in the industry. Now, I want to emphasize something. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to, mock your question. This is your chance to ask a question. I worked at a place called the Goodspeed Opera House. The Goodspeed Opera House is where the musical Annie was born. Annie was born there. And they taught me something very important. They said, Kevin, it is far better to ask a stupid question than it is to make a stupid mistake. Why? Because if you ask a quote-unquote stupid question, all you're going to get is an answer. But if you're in Hollywood, you're on a film set, and you make a stupid mistake, it can cost people millions and millions of dollars. So I'm not going to make fun of you. I encourage you to ask questions, even if it sounds trivial, or if you think, oh God, this sounds so stupid, I don't think he'll care. No, folks, ask questions. Because to make this panel work, folks, I need you to ask questions. Because when you ask questions, then I can give you the answers. So I need you to ask, I know it's like a homework assignment, but I need you all to ask questions, and this way we can start talking and have a good conversation. So, without any further ado, let's open it up to questions. Who here has a question? Anyone? Oh, come on, you have to have questions. You came here to the panel. Yes, ma'am.
Out of New York, Texas, and Los Angeles, where would be the best place for a video editor to get her start in the business?
Actually, Texas is not a good place for a video editor. The best place for video editing is two places. It is either Los Angeles or New York.
Okay, thank you.
And the reason why I bring that up is because you're touching on something very important, is that the film industry is split into two almost separate industries. The decision making, the casting, the script writing, the deal making is done in Los Angeles and New York. But the actual shooting of films often takes place in other places. I mean, look at the Marvel movies. They aren't shot in Los Angeles. They're shot all over the place. Iron Man 3 was shot in North Carolina. Iron Man 2 was shot in New Mexico. Transformers was shot all over the country, but very little of it was shot in Los Angeles. So you're seeing the films are being shot in other places while the decision-making and the post-production work is being done in Los Angeles. So it's why it's a great question. What's your name?
Caroline.
Caroline, it's a wonderful question because it's if you want to go to be a video editor, Los Angeles, New York is probably the place to be. If you want to actually work on the actual film sets, do not go to Los Angeles. Very little of film and television shot in Los Angeles now, believe it or not. The studios are still there, the decisions are made there. I will cast a film in Los Angeles, but then I will look and shoot somewhere else. I have two friends who are working on a film. I can't say what it is, but they're not going to shoot it in Los Angeles even though they live there. They're going to shoot it somewhere in the Midwest because it's far more film friendly. My friend Jeremy Boring, who directed and produced the film The Arroyo, which was the #1 Western on iTunes when it debuted. He shot it in Texas, and he edited it in Los Angeles. He did all the post-production work in Los Angeles. He wrote it in Los Angeles, cast it in Los Angeles, but shot it in Texas, and then came back to LA to finish it. So the film industry is split into two sort of distinct entities. So that's a great question, Carol. Thank you. So who has another question? Anyone? Anyone? Yes?
How did you get started with Robotech?
How did I get started with Robotech? Wow. How did I get started with Robotech? Well, I've always been a fan of Robotech. And when I moved out to Los Angeles in 1998, I worked at Fox, I worked at Paramount, I worked for Linda Obst. And then I heard through the grapevine that Harmony Gold in 2001 was thinking of reviving the franchise. So I contacted them on the blue. I didn't know anybody there. And I said, hi, I'm Kevin McKeever. You don't know who I am. But I hear you're making a new Robotech project. I might be of some assistance. Here's my work history. Let's talk. And it took me 2 years of lobbying, from 2002 to 2004. And even then, they only hired me as a full-time temporary employee. They said, well, you know, we're not really sure if you're going to work out, so we'll make you like a full-time temporary employee. You'll only be employed full-time for 1 year. So a year goes by and I'm still there. And I wasn't sure where I still show up, what happens? So like the Alan Letts, who was then the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Harmony Gold, who's then the executive in charge of production, he's in my office and he's sitting down, he's saying, Kevin, look, I'm really sorry, but we can't give you a raise this year. I'm like, okay. Well, Kevin, please understand, you know, we just can't give you a raise this year. I said, Alan, I don't want a raise. I just want to know if I still have a job, please. You know, he's like, what do you mean? Well, I'm a full-time temporary employee. Don't you remember? He goes, oh, yeah. I go, look, if you make me a full-time employee, like permanent employee, and you just give me health insurance and benefits, you give me a take-home raise because you don't have to pay for health insurance out of my own pocket. And they went, oh, we'll fix that right away. And our human resources person, Christy, went like, had like a meltdown. Wait a minute. He's like, temporary? What's going on here? How can this be? So you know, that's pretty much how I got it. It took me 2 years of lobbying. So, and I got the job. I do a whole panel on this, how I broke into the anime industry. But I got the job, which will be tomorrow, by the way, which you should come to, which will more fully answer your question. I got the job not because I was a Robotech fan. I got the job because I worked in Hollywood and I had good credits, and they realized, okay, this is someone Kevin can trust. We as Harmony Gold can trust. So come to my panel tomorrow, how I broke the anime industry. I'll give you the full answer to that question. So, all right, who has another question? Anyone? Anyone? Yes?
Okay, I'd like to know, since this is about independent filmmaking, what's the best kind of equipment to start out with when you're going to try and make independent film?
What's the best equipment? Or what type of? There's a
well,
lot of
like the
equipment
cameras, the other things. Like, what would you recommend for somebody, say, on a shoestring budget?
Whatever you can afford. It's not the equipment that you have; it's how you use it. I'll use an example of lighting. I did lighting at Mohegan Sun. You know, you had some tours that had $1 million lighting rigs. You had other tours that had dumpy lighting rigs. But the quality of the equipment didn't matter. It was the individual running the equipment that did. I mean, so I saw lighting shows that had like these spectacular lighting rigs, but the lighting was just awful. I saw shows that had crappy lighting rigs that barely functioned, yet the lighting was really good because the guy running it knew what he was doing. It's not the quality. It's not the quality or how much money you spend on the equipment. It's how you use the equipment. I could shoot something really well with that camera you have right now. Yet you could give me the state-of-the-art Sony Red camera, I can shoot something that looks like utter crap. It's not what the equipment you have, it's how you use it. So, great question. Who has another question? Anyone? Bueller? God bless John Hughes. There was a good filmmaker, by the way, folks. You know, he really knew how to tap into, tell good stories and good characters. So, go on, you have to have questions, folks. You came out, yes.
When you have a minimal budget,
yes.
What is the best way to make your own on-set effects, like such as explosions, without the use of digital effects?
Well, when you're in a shoestring budget, example, say you want to have an explosion, right? So there are two people sitting at a table, and something's going to explode. It's not going to kill them, but it's going to explode. You don't have the money, obviously, to do digital effects. You don't have the money to hire a pyrotechnician to actually blow something up. So what do? Well, the way around that is you have to think. How do you think your way around that? Very simple. Two people are talking, and all of a sudden they hear, and the table shakes. What was that?
Audio engineering.
What was that? Oh, that was an explosion. So you use the mind as this greatest special effects house of them all. That way, you couldn't afford it, but you still blew something up, see? And then you could show a dead person or a broken window or something. That's how a lot of people sort of get around that because they can't afford pyrotechnicians, or they can't afford the expensive digital effects. So, and that can be much more effective as well, depending on what you're trying to do. You have to really think about what you want to do. You know, to use a good example, it doesn't really matter. we talked about before about equipment. It doesn't matter how much good equipment you have. You can have the almost unlimited budgets. We've seen filmmakers with unlimited budgets, and they really screw things up. But yet there are other people who have lack of money, and it forces them to be creative to find solutions to problems. Don't look at your lack of budget as a problem. Look at it as an opportunity of how do I still tell the story I want to tell without busting my budget. Remember, people watch good stories with good characters. Character, character, character. When you tell a good story and a good character, the audience will forgive your lack of budget. So that's something always to keep in mind. So, good questions. Who has another question? Anyone? No? I'm not that exciting? Is that what you're trying to say? No? Yes?
Well, how do we improve that shoestring budget? Do you have any tips on how to talk to people to invest in your independent movie?
How do you improve it? I mean,
your money. Get the money.
You get more money. It's still, you don't
yeah.
improve it, but you get more money. Well, I mean, you have to think of independent filmmaking. Think of filmmaking, any filmmaking, this way. I always like it this way. Someone's going to give you $1 million, and then you're going to take a flamethrower to that $1 million and light it on fire, and it's going to burn to the ground. And then you're going to turn around to that investor and say, "I want $1 million more." Can that filmmaker, can that investor write you that check? Now, why is that important? Because here's the thing: most films don't make money. Most films lose money. So whoever's investing in your project is going to probably lose that money. They have to really want to passionately be there and be a part of your project. And to make that happen is they have to believe that you can at least be competent enough to deliver what they want. So you have to tell that investor, look, here's what I want to do. You're going to probably lose your money, but here's the story that I want to tell. Find investors who agree with the story that they want to tell. If you have a group of investors who say, you know, I really wish there was a story about a girl who's a princess who lives in a castle where there's a lot of snow and just can't let it go. I really wish there was, see, there you can see, and then you can find somebody to, we talked about story and character before, you all laughed at that reference I just made, but note I didn't say any character name, and I didn't say the story title, but you knew exactly what I was talking about. Story and character, ladies and gentlemen. That's the thing, you get to find people who agree, who really share your vision. Investors who share your vision. I want to see that story about a princess who lives in a castle who can't let it go. So that's what, see, find those people who agree with you. Accept a lot of no's. And even then, once again, coming back to what we talked about here with Carolyn, is that you have to look at whatever money you have as an opportunity, not as a hindrance. So, all right, who has another question? Yes?
So then would you say you should be thinking about your story not in terms of what you can't do, but what needs to be done for the sake of the story?
What's going to tell your story? Once again, talk about story and character. What's going to take to tell your story? And you know, what in the original 2007, the first 2007 Transformers movie, what's the one scene everybody remembers? It's the scene when they're all in the bedroom with Shia LaBeouf and Shia LaBeouf's character and their, see, you're nodding already, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Shia LaBeouf and his parents. That's a dialogue scene. There are no robots in it. There are no explosions. There's no action sequences. It's just 3 to 4 people, you can't make it about this character, 3 and 4 people having a conversation. But the minute you even brought that, you made a subtle reference, you knew exactly what I was talking about. And that's the scene that almost everybody remembers, because it was a story and a character. So you have to tell your story with good characters. And even the original script, just so you know, the dialogue wasn't as clear as it was. It was more of an on-set thing with Michael Bay and those characters. So figure out, tell your story. Focus on your story. A good example is, what is Alien? The original Alien movie. The original Alien movie is truckers in space. You're nodding, oh, so people are not, that's trucker. No, it's truckers in space. It's about the truckers in space, and then they land on a planet, and hilarity ensues. So, you know, that's what happens. So it's truckers in space. So tell your story. That's the key thing. Focus on your story. Don't worry about budget. Focus on your story. Focus on your characters. So, yes, in the back.
I think you'll change the story.
How do you do it? Changes? What do you mean by changes in the story? All stories change. That's why I would be a little more specific.
Yeah, well, you know, the compromise, I think, is a better term. So the person who gave $1 million decides he wants something to happen in that story in particular. Like,
Well, this comes back down to what it is, what your vision is. And does your vision merge with the vision of your investors? That often happens, because you have to remember, when a person's writing the check, they're going to want to see certain things. And the key is you have to pick and choose your battles. Example, if your investor says, you know, I really want one of the guys to wear a Naruto hat, okay? Do you fight him on the Naruto hat, or do you say, you know what, that's a good idea, Mr. Investor, what type of Naruto hat would you want them to wear? Do you want them to wear a regular hat? Do you want to wear a red hat, a blue hat? What type of hat? So when the investor comes along and then says, okay, I want you to chuck truckers in space, and I want a Moulin Rouge style musical sequence in the middle of an alien movie, then that's where you can fight. Say, no, we're not doing it. We're not doing Moulin Rouge, we're doing aliens, is what I'm saying. So it's important to pick and choose your battles. And oftentimes, look at your investors and say, okay, well, okay, do you want the guy to wear a hat? What type of hat? What type of hat do you want them to wear? You know, I have an idea for a hat that would be good for that character. Notice what I just did. I took that idea that that person had and said, oh, you want a hat? Well, here's an idea for a hat they can wear. So that key is to learn to pick and choose your battles when you fight this stuff. So, okay, next question. Yes?
Would you say it's worth going to film school?
If your parents are paying for it and you don't have to pay it back, yeah, sure it is. But the reason why I bring this up, okay, this is why I bring this up, is that people have to understand something. We hear a lot about student debt, okay? And this is something that really sort of, I think it's worth discussing. It's a much larger, this will answer your question, but it's going to be sort of a long route for us to take. Is that when kids are turning 18, if a kid turned 18 and graduated from high school and said, I am going to go out and buy a $200,000 house, what would the reaction be? Are you nuts? Why are you buying a house? Well, okay, but we're telling kids, okay, you just turned 18, and now I want you to take a $200,000 loan to all you're going to get is a piece of paper with your name on it. That's what film school is, a piece of paper with your name on it that said you spent a large sum of money. Oh, and by the way, the bankruptcy laws have changed. You can't charge it off now. So if you can't pay it, they can still come after you and do a lot of nasty things to your credit and your future. So is film school something you need? The answer is no. Occasionally, example, I went to Emerson College, okay? Never once for me has it come up in an interview of where I went to school. After I talked with people and I started working with them, it's okay, where'd you go to school? Emerson, yeah, I went there too, hey, awesome. But I don't look at where you went to school. I can show you NYU film school graduates who should not be allowed anywhere near Hollywood, because that's how awful they are. I can show you people who went to a community college or they just learned how to do the things the skills they have, and they're excellent. So you have to decide, is the money I'm going to spend worth it? Is the huge amount of debt I'm going to take on worth it? Because remember, you've got to pay that debt back. And all you do is, all you're going to get, your asset when you spend all that money is going to be a piece of paper with your name on it. That's what a diploma is. It's just a piece of paper with your name on it. It just said that I spent a lot of money for this piece of paper. At least with a house, you still have a physical asset you can sell and get some money back with it. Maybe not what you paid, but at least you get some money back. All that is a piece of paper that you can sell, which you'll be paying off for the next 20 or 30 years. And remember, in Hollywood, you know, there's a lot, at any one given time, there's like a 98% unemployment rate in the Screen Actors Guild. Yes. And even among writers and directors, we talked about before how the film industry is split into two, how the decisions and the scripts are being written in Los Angeles, but the films are being shot somewhere else. LA is very film hostile. There's a lot of people who've left the industry because they could not find enough work. So really think about that before you go and spend a large sum of money. Okay, you had your hand up, Caroline. I want to hear what.
I was just going to ask, so it doesn't really matter what kind of college that you go to as long as you...
Doesn't to me, no.
But to the generality, I guess, of Hollywood, not just to you individually.
No one's going to care what college you went to. They're going to care if you put butts in seats or not. And you can do what you say you can do. You could have an NYU, you could have a USC film school degree, but if you can't do what you say you can do, you're worthless to me. You're worthless to people in Hollywood. So it's the skills that you have. What do you offer to the table? That's the key thing. Don't let, oh, I went to a community college. Don't let that bother you. As I said before, I can show you people who came from the top film schools who suck. I can show you people who went to a community college who are really good at what they do, who I love working with because they show up on time, they're ready to go, and they're highly skilled and really good at what they do. So always keep that in mind. So, all right, who has another question? Yes.
So, all right. So besides sort of obviously going out and filming yourself, what are like the best ways to really learn about like the whole process of film in general? Like especially if you can't like go out and make the movie, like you just don't have the equipment, you don't have the budget, you don't have people.
I'll give you a good example. I don't know if it's on the DVD, but I do know on the Terminator 2 Laserdisc, the special edition Laserdisc, they have an excellent commentary track about how they made that film. The Rock Criterion Collection has a commentary track of how they made the film. And it's direct film schools. It's a really good way to learn from people who are successful of what went into it. The Abyss Special Edition doesn't have a commentary track, but has a 1-hour documentary on it, where they show how they made the film and all the issues they had to deal with, and the supplemental stuff on it shows you the problems they were facing when the original theatrical release came out in 1989. Once again, that's how I really learned. I learned a lot more from that than I did from film school. I studied theater, just so you know. People say, well, Kevin, do I need a film school degree? Folks, I work in Japanese anime. My degree is theater. I can't write, I can't draw, I don't speak Japanese. But I know people who can write, I know people who can draw, and I can hire a translator to speak Japanese for me. So, yes, you have your hand up, sir.
What are the pros and cons, in your personal opinion, about short story or short films over a longer?
Is a short film good?
Like, would it be better for earlier projects in your career?
Make something good. Doesn't matter how long it is, make something good. Do you want to sit through, try sitting through a 20-minute short film that really just sucks. It'll feel like it's 5 hours long. Sit through a film that's 3 hours long that's really good, it'll feel like it's only 20 minutes. Make something that's good. Length doesn't matter, it's how good it is. That's the key thing.
Thank you.
Yes?
So when trying to find work, whether it be if you're a director, video editor, or just an actor, when you're making your professional reel to send it that has all the your best works all together, would you recommend that you just send that to as many people as possible to find work?
No.
Or
I would recommend that you want to work with people who you want to work with. Example, if you make horror movies, you're not going to send your reel to Lifetime. You're not, because they don't really do horror movies. Well, recently they've been doing some horror movies, but they do Flowers in the Attic. But I mean, my point is though, is that research the companies that you do. There's a thing in Hollywood called American Film Market that happens every November, and it's where filmmakers and producers and wannabes all talk with like financiers and distributors and video people, that sort of thing. And a lot of deals are done at AFM, but people walk into AFM, and what they do is that they don't do research for the companies that are there. When Harmony Gold actually what they do is, just so you know, just so I can set this up, they take over the whole hotel, they take out all the beds in the hotel rooms, and they turn them into offices. So instead of, you don't stay at the hotel at the AFM, but it becomes like in essence an office building. So people can walk into these offices, sit down and like talk and do a deal. So people would go to AFM, and what they would do is I call it carpet bombing. They'd have a list of all the people at AFM and just go to each and every one and pitch their project. And they would be and they'd be rejected because, well, if I do Jane Austen movies and you want to make the next Saw movie, see my point? You think those two? No, of course not. I mean, I do Jane Austen movies. I don't. But I mean, you get my point. But if you want to talk to a company that does horror movies, they'll want to talk with you. Okay, great. Do research on what it is you want to do. What type of project do you want to work? Don't just blindly send things out. People have very long memories. And that sort of shows an amateur sort of level on what you're doing. Now look, everybody starts off with no experience. I started with no experience. Everyone in Hollywood had no experience at one point. So if you say, look, I'm looking for experience, they'll understand. But if you're looking to send out a director reel or something, research the company before you send off your reel. So they know, do research. Because I remember I was walking along AFM, I was walking along the hallway, I saw a guy just going like this, boom, boom, like hitting the wall, like boom, 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 because he was so frustrated that everybody said no to him, because he didn't do any research. And here I was walking around, and I walked through the whole hotel. This is like 6 floors, okay? Actually, it was 8 floors, excuse me. 8 floors with a sub-basement. And so I walked through, I looked at every company, I looked at what they had, sort of what the vibe I was getting off of them, and then the second day, I started just walking around, waiting for an opening to happen, and eventually someone said, hey, you know, I've been seeing you walk around. Who are you? I said, oh, come on, mind if I come in? Sure, come on in, sit down. Great, so well, I'm Kevin, you know, I wasn't working at Harmony Gold at the point, but I'm with Bank of Kev Productions, and just want to check out what you guys are doing. So what are you guys doing here? Oh, we're working on all this other, yeah, great. Well, you know, hey, I have this project you guys might be interested in. Well, really tell me. See, I did some research in what I was doing. So then when I started talking, they knew I wasn't just some person just you know, checking off things, or carpet bombing as they call it. Carpet bombing will not get you very far. So research before you act. The more you know, like G.I. Joe, knowing's half the battle. The more you know, the better off you're going to be. Example, I often go to industry events in Los Angeles, and I often have actors approach me. And I can tell why these people, if they're working or not, because when they say, well, Kevin, what is it that you do? I say, I work on Robotech. And they'll say, what is Robotech? Now that's a normal question. Everybody might know what the franchise is. I say, oh, it's the rival franchise of Transformers. Huh? I'm like, wow, you really don't know what's going on in this industry now, do you? I mean, I can understand you not knowing what Robotech exactly is, but if you don't know what Transformers is, or even understand it, you're probably not really up following what's going on in the industry a lot, are you? No, probably not. Okay, good. You'd be surprised how many people are that sort of ignorant, even though they want to work in the industry. So, research. Know what your industry is doing. It's very, very key. Okay, next question. Great questions, by the way, folks. This is very good. Who has another question?
Wasn't GoBots the rival to Transformers?
No, we are the rival to Transformers. GoBots is bought up by Hasbro and locked in a room and never seen again. So there you go. Somebody had their hand up over here. Yes, sir.
Do you have any tips on, you know, some people like me, I have ADD and stuff. But is there any tips that you can give me on actually getting work done? I mean, other than just doing it. Is there anything you can do?
I don't understand the question.
So, like, let's say you want to be.
I mean, finish what you start. I mean, that helps a great deal.
Yeah, but like just like getting started and getting yourself the motivation to do something. Is there anything you can do?
If you we get the motivation, I don't understand.
Don't worry about that.
Well, no, because you know, you have to understand this is a very difficult industry to work in. You're going to be rejected constantly. You're going to be told you're too short, you're too tall, you're too fat, you're too thin. You have short, sort of curly hair. I want somebody with long, black, wavy hair. I don't want you. Or I want the guy in the yellow shirt, but sorry, Mr. Yellow Shirt with the cat ears. I wanted devil horns instead. This is a very difficult industry to work in. So, and, you know, you have to be motivated. You have to be willing to take no for an answer. This is an industry built around the word no. So, if you're not motivated or ready to take that risk, don't come into the industry. I'll just be blunt with you. Don't come into the industry because there's no job security. There's no, I mean, it's feast or famine, and even when you feast, it's not very a lot. And LA is a very expensive city. You know, it's like $2.87 for gas out in Los Angeles, out here in Denver. Well, it's like $3.50 gas, and that's the cheap stuff. And you have to drive everywhere in horrid traffic. So, I mean, you're looking at high cost of living and very low wages. I mean, you have to be motivated. This is something you have to want to do. I could not be sitting in an office doing TPS reports all day. So, this is what I want to do. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. That's my motivation. You can't, this is not something you sort of, I'll just sort of casually do. No, you can't be like that. It's something you have to fully commit to. You want a wife, a house, and kids, and 2.7 kids and a dog, this is not the industry to be in. You think, oh, I'll just hang out and party with like Brad Pitt. Nope, this is not the industry to be in. You might take Brad Pitt's order at a restaurant, might, if you're lucky, and you can ask him if you want the soup or the salad. But you won't, you know, this is a very difficult industry to work in. So you need to be motivated. You have to say, I'm willing to take my entire life and have it be the singular focus of that life. Meaning, you may not go out on Saturday night because you don't have any money to go out on Saturday night. You want to see that new movie? Can't because you don't have money. You have to wonder how you're going to pay your rent. So, this is not something you can casually just walk into. It's something you have to really be committed to want to do. Entertainment's a very, very tough industry. And believe it or not, I haven't even described how difficult it can be. People will turn to you and say, what's your name?
Will.
Will. They'll say, Will, okay, you want to work for me? Great, you can work for free. Oh, and by the way, do you have a laptop?
Yeah.
Great, bring it in because I want to use your laptop because I'm not going to buy you one.
Okay.
And you can't leave it in your laptop because now I'm going to put proprietary sensitive information on it. Can't leave the office. No, I've seen that actually happen. Because there are people, you know, I mean, so, you know, and so, great, wait, so, other people might say no, other people might say, yes, sure, I want to do it, but see, that's the thing, it's a very tough industry to be in. So, if you want to be, it's not something you can just be casual about, it's something you have to be really, really committed to. So, all right, but great, it's a great question. Yes, sir?
What project that you've worked on has been your all-time favorite project?
Wow. No, it's because like a lot of them, I've been very lucky. I've worked on a lot of things that were good. I worked on Jackass. I'm in one of the stunts. When I worked for Linda Oaks, was an outstanding. I didn't work on any specific project with her, but I worked on a lot of the stuff that she was doing, and that was a wonderful time. I love working on Robotech every day. I mean, I'm paid to talk about cartoons and play with toys and go around the country and talk. Come on, how is that not an awesome job? I mean, I worked for Fox, I worked for Paramount, I worked at those places. I saw them, I mean, I watched them shoot the X-Files when it moved down to California. I walked through Scully's apartment and into Mulder's office where there was the desk and behind there was the I Want to Believe poster. Then I met Chris Carter. How's that for awesomeness? So, I didn't work on the X-Files. I was working for Linda Oaks at the time, but because she was on Fox and so was the X-Files, that's what I saw. So, I mean, I had great, that's why it's so difficult to sort of describe it, because there's not one singular project where I went, oh my God, this was great. There were lots of projects where I went, oh my God, this is so awesome. I get paid to do this stuff. This is freaking cool, man. So, yeah. So, there's not one, sorry.
Yes.
I apologize if I didn't answer your question.
It's fine.
Okay. So, who has another question? Yes?
I guess to play off the last question,
Sure.
like two questions, I guess. One, at what point in your career did, I guess would be like your first moment where you realized like this was worth it, this was like the most rewarding, I guess?
It was in high school.
Yeah.
It was in high school, and it was at the Goodspeed. So when I worked at the Goodspeed Opera House, the birthplace of Annie, it was actually, I was in high school at the time. And during my summers, I would work there as an apprentice, which is like the lowest of the totem pole. And then, and I asked them, and I said, it was the summer of 1990, I remember this very well. I asked them, well, will I ever be, is there ever a chance I could work as like on the actual shows? I would just come in like 9 to 5 and help them do their stuff. They said, well, Kevin, we usually don't hire high schoolers because, well, we've had problems with them in the past. You know, and it's like, okay, I was bummed. But then, I left Goodspeed to go back. There was something that a theater troupe came into our high school. They rented out the auditorium, and they hired me, because under the rental agreement, they had to hire the regional district 18 line director, which happened to be me. So I got paid $10 an hour. This was 1990. $10 an hour, and I worked like 10 hours a day. I was making some pretty good doing it. I loved I mean, this is hard work, but I loved every second of it. I walked out of there with like a load of cash. Okay, I mean, this went on for several weeks. And then Goodspeed called. I got this frantic call from him. Kevin, we have a job for you. Can you come on over? I quite literally just finished that up. And then Goodspeed called me and they said, yeah, sure, I'd love to come over. And I thought like it would be like just like, you know, Kevin, we need you to come in for a couple of days and do something. I said, no, Kevin, one of our interns, he was an apprentice and then the intern. So I was lower than an intern. One of our interns has been let go. So, because he wasn't very good. And would you be willing to work on one of our shows? Actually work on one of these shows at their, what's called their Chester stage, which is where they do the experimental theater stuff. I went, oh God, yes. And then remember they sat me down and they said, Kevin, we expect good things from you. We expect you to be on time. Not that I was ever on time, but they had problem with the other guys. So it's like they wanted to make sure I knew, like, you know, I was like, I'm gonna just do whatever the best I can. And I remember I showed up early. I was the first in, last out. I was just like, this is so awesome. You have to remember, I was still in high school at the time. I'm working with people in their 20s and their 30s. And it was really cool because they all accepted me. The cast accepted me, the crew accepted me, they opened me with welcome arms. They would take me out because they didn't have cars, but I did. So I drive the cast around. And then like people would just say, Kevin, just tell them you're 18. It's like this, like they kind of like, for scream, like just say you're 18. Just try to, that's all I said. Okay, I'm 18 now. Okay, great. I'm older too. I'm illegal. They're saying I'm a legal adult, even though I'm not. Awesome. I was only 17 at that point. So I got like the internship, and I became a legal adult by Goodspeed standards. And so like I drive the cast around. I party with the cast. I still remember this too. This little bit of a tangent. They would sit down, the cast, when the shows were over, they'd go back to, Goodspeed puts you up in these sort of houses where they would house you. And I was local, so I'd go home, but they would sit down, they would watch movies. I remember there's a scene, and it's the Goldie Hawn movie where she goes into the army, I can't remember right offhand, Private Benjamin. And there's that scene where she meets the drill instructor for the first time, and Goldie Hawn says, have you seen like the conditions? And what they did was they broke apart that scene for the drill instructor, and they showed, I learned a lot of how you create a character, how an actor creates a character from it. I still can remember it too. They said, remember, this is like a 4-head VCR, so remember VCRs, folks? I mean, they could sort of stop and pause and say, watch her and how the drill instructor, who's sadly no longer with us, that actor sadly died, and like watch how she mouths what Goldie Hawn is saying. And watch how she darts her. I went, holy crap, they're right. Holy cow, I couldn't believe it. That was really cool. And it was just so much like, wow, I want to do this for the rest of my life. Because look at this, I'm being accepted. I mean, this is freaking awesome. While other people are working at McDonald's, or working at a record store, or working at the Gap, I'm off working with these actors, and they're teaching me about acting. And I learned more from acting from that this sort of break apart of that scene Private Benjamin, than I'd been through in acting classes that I've seen happen all over Los Angeles. It was really cool. I was like, I want to be a part of this. This is awesome. I mean, this is really good. I mean, I got paid for it too. I went back to school, and everyone's like, went back to high school, so it was my senior year in high school. So what'd you do this summer? I worked at McDonald's. What'd you do? I worked at the Gap. Oh, what'd you do? Well, I worked at a record store. It was pretty good. Kevin, what'd you do? Well, I did lighting for a show that was in the Lima High School auditorium, and then I got hired by the Goodspeed Opera House to work on the musical Blanco, and I was able to hang out and party with the entire cast, and that was the nice summer vacation. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So, what was your second question?
I guess just same question, but like present day, reflecting back after all the hard work and everything, like looking back, like. I guess what you would like take away now, as your most rewarding looking back, what your life is like now, and just kind of.
Well, I don't want to look back because there's still a lot of good, awesome things I want to do in the future.
Nice.
See, so talk to me about my deathbed, and then I can answer that question. So hopefully, you have to wait 50, and then DK, 2065, then you can say, Kevin, what was your thing? You're about to die. Tell me. So, all right. Who has another question? Great questions. Yes.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, okay. All right. Was there at any point in your career a time where you had to take a big risk to further yourself in film specifically?
Yes. This one took time. Yes. It was when I had to move out to Los Angeles. I didn't know anybody. I had no support system. There wasn't a job waiting for me. There wasn't a paid job waiting for me. I saved a lot of money and burned right through it. Ended up broke. Had to work a lot of crappy jobs. And, you know, and then we talked about the film industry splitting into two sections. The decisions are made in Los Angeles and the films are shot somewhere else. Well, I wasn't working on any sets at that point because there's no work. So I had to become a roadrunner shuttle driver, an airport shuttle driver to pay my bills. People always say, I'm going to add something here. I say, Kevin, what advice would you give me? What advice would you give me if I want to work in Hollywood? My advice is this: find a job that pays your bills but gives you the flexibility to pursue your career goals. Why are most actors waiters? Not because they want to serve you food, but because they have their days off to go on auditions and be rejected, and then at night they make enough money just to scrape by and pay their bills. I couldn't be a waiter because I screw up the order and spill the food. So instead I was an airport shuttle driver. I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4 10-hour days. And I had days, I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. And I had Thursday, Friday days off if I needed them. And the weekends were worthless for what I was doing because the industry is sort of closed. The offices aren't open. The business is not happening. They happen on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it worked out great. And remember, I told them, I said, look guys, one of these days we're on our show, I'm going to leave you because I came here to work in Hollywood. I said, Kevin, we understand that. All we ask is you that work one weekend day a week. They said, how do I work the whole weekend and I can give you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off? He went, oh, when can you start? I remember I called him at Harmony Gold. I said, guys, I got the Harmony Gold gig. He said, Kevin, it was great working with you. Congratulations. Roadrunner shuttle is awesome. So that's really key to understand. So you have to remember, that was probably the biggest risk. I was working at Mohegan Sun at the time, the Mohegan Sun Casino. I did lighting for their shows, and I was making like $19 an hour. Yeah, I had full benefits. I was in my 20s. I was making good money, but I was bored. I hated it, and so I chucked all that stability, and moved to Los Angeles. And now here I am talking to you. So there we go. So who has another question? Yes?
For independent film, I can give you an example for this question, but you work on the timing and placement of your film, so you have to go into marketing for it. So
yeah.
In general, if I had a film about a princess, I would probably want to time it around the same time that other princess movies are coming out.
No, you don't.
Oh, really? Well, what about, just as an example, if you look at like The Illusionist and what's that, the Prestige that came out at the same time? So
yes,
that one
they were fighting each other. Do you want to fight, or would you rather be the only princess movie that comes out, or would you rather go against 5 other princesses movies?
Is it, well, just as far as...
No, answer my question.
Well, okay, well, I don't want to compete with it.
Well, of course not. You want to feel all to yourself.
But you'd want it around the same time, wouldn't you? Because no one's going to really be looking for your small independent film, but they're probably going to be hungry for something with the same genre, right? So if you've got like a Lord of the Rings, and that's in December, wouldn't you want your film to be around November or December, around that?
It's a very hyper-competitive time. If I was an independent film, I would want to have my film come out when the competition was not. I would go against Lord of the Rings.
So after the fact.
What example? Give you an example, very recent example. It's a film called War Room that just came out, not this weekend, but last weekend. It grossed $11.3 million on 1,000 screens. It had a very low marketing budget, but it ended up #2. It almost beat Straight Outta Compton.
Wow.
Yeah, because Straight Outta Compton like 13 million. War Room had 11.3 million. And remember, Straight Outta Compton it's a biopic about NWA. Had a great, excellent marketing campaign behind it, and had a major studio backing it. So, but they came out last week when there was really no big releases coming out. Straight Outta Compton, that would be its 3rd week of its release. It's before Labor Day, and they were able to do a good, strong grassroots marketing. So when they came out, they could become the #2 movie in America, and they got a truckload of free publicity from that. Now they could have easily released it on July 4th weekend. Yeah, see, you laugh, but why'd you? Because you know what?
Right.
You know what? Why would they release it on July 4th weekend? Because you can't compete with the Avengers, Age of Ultron, Terminator Genesis, and a lot of these other films that have 80, 90, $100 million marketing budgets. Yet War Room made its money because TriStar, full disclosure, TriStar is owned by Sony. There's a live action Robotech movie set up by Sony. Was set up. They were smart. They said, look, let's put it in this sort of quiet weekend, and this way it punched right out. Look at the Dragon Ball Z movie that grossed $6.4 million, despite, and I don't mean this as a criticism, I'm talking it grossed $6.4 million, having a very unstable, and that's not criticism. The Funimation did is amazing, but they did it because they waited till all the big films had come out, and they used the summer convention circuit to build interest in it, so when it came out, it scored like a $3 million opening weekend off 500 screens. We're talking 500 screens, not like they were screening the whole day. It was like a one night sort, or 1 or 2 nights, 1 or 2 screens per night. So they were very smart because they realized, okay, we can't go up on July 4th weekend, but we'll use the conventions throughout the summer so people are aware of it. So when it came out in the theater, you guys all went. And Funimation scored a major, major victory for Anime.
So I guess back to my root question for that then. To actually advertise to certain smaller theaters in the first place, how do I actually get my reel over them? Do they have to approve it, or what's the process?
Well, the theaters are often owned. There are very few mom and pop individual owned theaters left, sadly.
Right.
Most of them are owned by chains. You have the big national chains like Regal and AMC, and of course you have sort of regional chains as well that are they're sort of within a region. You can usually call them up and say, hey, look, I have a film. What does it take to book it? Now, you have to remember, though, that those theater owners are going to want films that put butts in seats. So if they're going to give you a film, they're going to, example, using Funimation again as an example for Dragon Ball Z, they released their film like on Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember the exact day. They did like 1 or 2 screenings, then when the weekend came out, the theater counts dropped, because the theaters needed the screens for the big studio films. But then on Monday, they ramped it back up again because the theater said, you know what, I can give you, Funimation, these screens again because there aren't as many people. I'm not going to turn away business. So, but Funimation, once again, to their credit, because they did an excellent job on Dragon Ball Z, they played it really well. In fact, Funimation could have made probably, I think, a lot more money too. I think just as people were really, the Dragon Ball Z movie was just starting to get into consciousness, they had to pull it. But I think they did a really good job at that. Call up the theaters and they'll talk with you. I've done it with Robotech. I've booked theaters myself. I've done theatrical bookings myself. We sat down, worked out that was called a rental agreement in essence, and we did it. So but yet it's a very labor-intensive thing. You doing it yourself. You gotta book it, you gotta make sure to get the materials in, and then it's gotta be, well, how do people know about it? People have to know about your film is playing at the UA just down the street, or else if they don't know, they won't show up.
Are there any sort of, I'm so sorry if I'm...
No, please, ask your question.
So, for actors that are looking for an agent, so if you're looking for an agent, your agent will usually help you as far as booking shows, that sort of thing. As an independent filmmaker, are there any sort of companies that you can go to that might actually help you with that process?
Call up the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, which is sort of the unions of actors and writers, and sometimes ask them, do you have a list of agents who are looking for new submissions or new people? Sometimes they'll have them.
Okay.
So it's very difficult to get an agent because a lot of people want representation.
Yeah.
So, guys, we have time for a couple more questions and we gotta wrap it up. So, all right, 2 more questions. You, and then we'll go 1 more.
What's your opinion on crowdfunding for independent films?
Crowdfunding is not an ATM. If you assume crowdfunding is like an ATM, I worked on the 2nd highest crowdfunding movie ever, Gosnell movie, and Ann and Phelan, who are my personal friends, by the way, they told me they had a huge amount of earned media, and they needed like $2.1 million. They raised like $2.3 million, somewhere in that. I don't know the exact numbers, but just they got a little bit over. They had 45 days to do it, and it was a slog. I mean, these guys got major earned media out of it too. And it was a huge, huge, difficult, labor-intensive thing for them to do. So, crowdfunding is not an ATM. It's becoming much more difficult to raise money and get out of that. In fact, the amount of money, remember the Veronica Mars, like 5 million. There was that other film, I think it's Zac Efron movie, like 3 or 4 million, and Gosnell made like 2.3 million. If you notice, the numbers are going down, they're not going up. Crowdfunding's not an ATM. Okay, last question, then we'll wrap it up. Anyone? Okay, last question. Carol.
Does the American Film Marketplace that you mentioned earlier, does it have a website, or
Yes.
like when does it?
Just Google American Film Market Santa Monica, you'll see it. Like American Film Market, they'll cost you like $900 to get in. So just give you a heads
Do you
up.
think it's worth it?
If you have a good project, it is, but you have to have a plan. You just can't just go there. I was lucky. I was able, I work in the industry, so I was able to get, someone got me a badge. But remember, you have to have a plan. You just can't go there just to sort of wander around. Remember, it's really expensive. So I remember staying in Santa Monica and getting out to LA is going to be expensive too. So you're looking at maybe a 2 to 3K expenditure just to go to American Film Market. So, all right, folks, we have to wrap it up. But thank you very much, and we will see you all tomorrow, okay? Thank you.